Well, hello and welcome. I am Bob Doyle, one of the featured teachers in the film and book, The Secret. Most of you probably already know this, and I have been teaching people to live their life by design, mostly through law of attraction principles for the past 20 years, and that is what I'm known for. But one of the things that got me very interested in this whole conversation was very, very early interest in basically creating altered states of consciousness. And so that's why I'm super, super excited to have you meet Dr. Patrick Porter, if you haven't already, and to have this Better Your Brain webinar to show you some ways that we can use technology to really make some drastic and important changes in just how we be in the world and reach our full potential. Now, I'm sure that some of this is not brand new to many of you watching this. You're probably already in some level of conversation around how we can sort of hack our brains and use different shortcuts using technology or whatever. But I remember when I was early 20s, long before I was doing any of this, and I would see ads for these light and sound goggles. And I didn't know exactly what they would do or what the impact was, but boy, oh boy, did it sound exciting to me. But back then I just didn't know how I would access those things. And so it was years really before I ever got my hands on actual light and sound glasses of any kind. And it was the Braintap technology that I first used. And so I first met Dr. Porter like 5 years ago. I think it's somewhere around 5 years ago through a mutual friend. She, knew my interest in things, and we started having conversations back then. And I got my first Braintap and used it then. And then life happened, and we just sort of went and did our things. And now, but recently, especially since most of my focus has shifted from just law of attraction and energy and vibration and some of the conversation that a lot of people kind of consider woo-woo to more the brain science of this. Like, where does transformation actually happen? Where is our reality created? And my contention is that it's created in the moment that we make meaning out of our situation, and that the meaning that we give to any given situation is based wholly on how our brains are wired, what we've learned, and how we've learned to make meaning out of the world. And if your wiring is not serving you, good news is it can be changed. I talk a lot about neuroplasticity and our ability for our brains to change, which is very exciting for me to be able to point to, a lot of hard science around this rather than having people go, no, really, vibration, energy, you can get into vibrational resonance. I mean, I am not invalidating any of that, but it's a more difficult concept to explain to people and have them wrap their minds around than when we can point at specific data. So without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Patrick Porter so he can tell you what he's been doing with this technology. And I, have just sort of re-educated myself with some of this, re-listening to some of what he's been saying. And it's absolutely fascinating. So if you have any interest in this at all, if the brain fascinates you, if your own behavior fascinates you, if you're interested at all in profound, lasting transformation, this is absolutely the webinar to be at. So Dr. Patrick, thank you for being here. It is so great to be face-to-face and talk about this really cool stuff.
Well, thank you, Bob. And yeah, this has been my life. I mean, since a very early age, my father got involved with technology-driven meditation through something called the Silva method, and we were doing sound. And then in the 80s, when light came out, I was just happened to be part of a team because of my interest in meditation and relaxation techniques to invent the very first portable light and sound machine. So you saw, it was actually called the MC Square back then, but it's the same variation of the technology. It all evolves like every piece of electronics. We were able to take something that was the size of a microwave and put it down into a headset. A little bit about me, just so you can understand it. I am an award-winning author. I have a book called Awaken the Genius, which was about accelerated learning. It was published in the 90s, so that kind of dates me a little bit. But it was the best how-to book of the year that year. But it was more about teaching students, because I was one of those students that in second grade did so well, they had me do it again. And I really think it was Sister Barbara who really loved me and wanted me in her class 2 years in a row. But I realized that I was an artist, but I wasn't really into school, if you will. And my dad taught me to meditate, and I realized that I was really smart. But I didn't know that until I started meditating, getting my brain balanced. Now, of course, I get out there. I'm a speaker. I do a lot with the media. My whole goal is to bring technology to the world that's not only world class, but affordable. So as we go through this, we're going to give you some really powerful solutions for improving clarity, which I know everybody wants, improve your quality of sleep, which is a main thing with 2/3 of the American population not sleeping well, and provide more energy. And most importantly, to do this effortlessly. When we first invented the technology, we were looking for a solution for pain control, if you can believe that. We were using biofeedback. Back in the 80s, there was no neurofeedback. So if you weren't around in the 80s, my kids and grandkids think everybody was born with cell phones. I mean, we still had dial-up telephones. So, I mean, there's a lot has changed over these years. So we want to show you how technology is changing, advancing, and really putting that neuroplasticity that Bob was talking about in the palm of your hand. Our real business or mission is to better a billion brains. And with Bob's help, we're going to get there because it takes everyone. And I believe in coherence, which means as we all meditate, as we all relax, we are actually not only changing ourselves, we're changing the planet. And there's evidence out there that shows that. So my goal here is to help you learn about brain balance and the ultimate relaxation. And the key benefit to all of this is super learning. Right now, with stress at a maximum for most people, stress causes our brain not to function like we'd like it to intend. So, but if we can relax our brain state, we can learn better, we can learn faster, we can retain that information because our brain actually remembers everything. It's our recall. And under stress, we have a problem with that. So we're going to show you how this technology does that. So first of all, before we get started, we have a little pop quiz here. And of course, we want you to be honest. So at this moment in time, do you think your brain is in balance? And just put it over in the comment section so we can see that as we're going through the webinar here. And just kind of put it out there, get the energy flowing, get your brain. Our brain learns best when we have a little back and forth. And I know we're doing this virtually, but with quantum entanglement, we're all there somewhere in the ethers talking and communicating and having that conversation. In today's webinar, I'm going to share something with you. First of all, brain balance is a gateway to mental health. One of the things that we know, for instance, one of the studies we did for dementia was we found out that the left hemisphere was actually moving slower than the right hemisphere. Technology today is so much different than even 20 years ago. We can measure how quickly your brain moves, and that's something they call neuroplasticity too. So we can show in our study after 6 weeks of using Braintap that not only did their brain balance, which meant we sped up the left hemisphere, slowed down the right, but they had 49% more neuroplasticity in only 6 weeks. But the real benefit was these people all were suffering from not only dementia, but depression, anxiety. Think about it. Your brain, in the way it communicates, it's the speed of thought. So if you think of Pluto, you're there. It's not the speed of light. It's much faster. So our brain, even a millisecond, if those are off, it's going to cause fear, frustration, anxiety, and that can lead to depression. Now, emotional well-being, there's something called emotional intelligence. And I think today, a lot of people aren't aware of it, especially young kids, because they're used to getting everything right now. Their immediate gratification has gone through the roof. But how we handle energy and motion, that's what we're talking about here. So we're energy, everything is energy, but how do we handle that? Some people get overdriven with emotion. Maybe in the morning they wake up stressed out and they're stressed out all day long. That's not good for your energy system. So energies come from a lot of different sources. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on that. But emotion is more than just the way you interact with someone you love. It's how you interact with life in general. And we need to bring about that balance because you possess the most powerful pharmacy on earth, and emotions trigger that pharmacy. So we want to make sure it's all balanced there. Now, physical wellness is part of it, and I'm going to show or talk a little bit about how the nervous system works. 70% of your nervous system is in your head, not down your spine or down your arms. That's only 30%. You can think of your spine as the keyboard to the brain, but physical wellness starts with your thoughts. And your thoughts create the physical awareness that you have. In fact, there's a part of the body I would like to point out that's called the vestibular system. When we get older, unfortunately, what happens is that's the part of the brain that starts to falter, which means we lose our balance. But it really has to do with brainwave function. It has to do with the brainwave between being awake and sleep, a brainwave called SMR, sensory motor rhythm. And you can train that part of your brain. And of course, you can do it in other ways too. You can do it through dancing, breathing exercises, yoga, but a lot of people just want to be able to kick back, relax, do their meditation and have it balanced for them.
Can I jump in real quick about
Yes.
just to underline something you just said? Because when I was going over this, as I said, the thing that you mentioned about like the Alzheimer's patients and the brain being out of balance and going at different speeds, this was new to me, or I'd forgotten it or whatever. So the fact that, and especially since my conversation these days and all the work that I'm doing with people is about getting this neuroplasticity going, the fact that you're saying that, if the brain is out of balance or moving at different speeds or whatever, and I'd like to know if you can, like how that even begins to happen, but that fixing that through this technology, for example, you saw a 49% increase in the ability for the brain to change. Right. So if you are taking on transformation and your brain is out of balance, you're in for a much slower go. But I don't think this is something that people think about. They're not thinking about the speed of their brain doing any of this. It's like, oh, this is just hard, or my life was hard, or I've got these stories, or it's just not, whatever their conversation is about why they can't create transformation. But this is like, if you're going to go after rewiring yourself with any program, it's any approach, we need that brain to be in its optimal condition. And if it's out of balance, and it's not, and if a simple practice like this can bring that in, then this is something that you absolutely want to pay attention to. And so that really got my attention. I am curious if we I mean, maybe this is where we're going with this, exactly how we get out of balance in the first place.
Well, the number one is the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain, just in simple terms, that takes long-term memories to short-term memories and short-term memories to long-term memories. And under stress, they actually showed that it shrinks up to 1/4 of an inch. So that's in a year. So think of the chronic low-level stress people have been under just in the past year. I mean, and we had stress before that. So stress is the biggest culprit, and the brain is an energy hog, right? It weighs about 3 to 5 pounds, depending upon your size, but will use 25% of all the energy in the body.
You said over the course of a year, it shrinks physically, a part of your brain. Is that what you said, 1/4 of an inch?
Because it's happening over time, it's like having a hard drive that keeps shrinking. So all the data keeps moving, but the data gets combobulated, right? It's not organized efficiently. So, and then what happens is the brain starts to think that that's normal. And Bob, I don't know if I've shared this with you and the listeners, but we've done studies. We've done over 30,000 brain scans since we've been in this field. And we've only had 2 people in the history of time that used their own meditation and showed a positive result in their brain after meditating. And I'm not kidding. The only people that haven't done that were a couple of gurus that we did at Ames Institute in India. And of course they got into it, did their breathing exercises, and their brain was positive. Most people, when they meditate, actually cause more stress on their brain than not meditating. So let's talk about Anne for a moment. Anne's brain is out of balance. And I want you to those listening, can you identify with their struggle? First of all, most people are aware of the 24-hour news cycle. This is raising fear and uncertainty. I mean, I always tell people, if you're too happy, I have a solution for that. Just turn on the news, and you're going to find that fear, frustration, and anxiety is going to overrun you. Technology for a lot of people is difficult, and social media, nobody can live up. I love the card that you give out at birthday. Say, I hope your day is as good as your Facebook post. There's a totally different attitude there. We're information overwhelmed. They say if our grandparents were put in the middle of Central Park, or the middle of Times Square during normal times, they'd go into neuroshock. We have text, phones, and all the interruptions. They say the average person looks at their phone 150 times every day. And we know, because we've done brain scans where we put their phone across the room. They couldn't even hear it really, but every time it had an alert, they had a cortical response, which means their brain responded even though their conscious mind couldn't hear it. We are so linked. There's such a quantum entanglement between all things. That's why we recommend, of course, when you're meditating, put your phone on silent. Don't let it disrupt you. Yeah. There's daily stresses and demands. We want more out of ourselves than ever before. we're going to talk a little bit about that and how that interrupts our sleep in just a moment. We have such daily stressors. We have the demands of our family, our job. Some people have a to-do list that not an army could accomplish, and then they beat themselves up all day for not accomplishing it. So all of this adds into it, and they think they're wrong or broken. And I'm here to tell you, you're not wrong or broken. You have a training problem. We need to retrain your brain. And the reality is that we can do much more than we're doing, but there's a more efficient way to do it. So let's just write down over here in the comments section just for a moment. What's your number one stressor right now? Just feel free, just write it over there in the comments. There's no wrong answer. I mean, everybody has different stressors. Just put it over there so that we can kind of, as we're going along, we can see what those stressors are. Mm-hmm. Now, why and you can't find balance on your own. So this is important. Your brain struggles to adapt. The change in the brain, and what happens is it's trying to autocorrect. So people do things like drugs, alcohol, different things to get their brain back in balance. One of my favorite books when I was writing a program for the state of Arizona for DUIs was called Finding Your Perfect High. And the person who wrote the book, this was back in the 80s, but it's still a really good book by John Marshall. And he talks about how people getting high don't really want to get high. They want to get balanced. They want their brain to balance. And one time they got high and they felt balanced, and then they keep chasing that high. Mm-hmm. But remember, the perfect high is one you create for yourself with your own neurochemicals instead of the others. So, we have triggers, right? In all the wrong places. I used to tell my kids, don't let people have your remote control. So many people give away their happiness because of what other people say, do, or what happens in the world around them. Most of us struggle to get restful sleep and are chronically exhausted. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about that more in a slide to follow, but most people are not getting the required sleep, even if they're in bed for 8 hours. It's not about time in bed. It's about brain function during sleep. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, Bob, in just a moment. Mm-hmm. So when your brain's out of balance, these are things that you experience: anxiety, depression, addiction, fatigue, brain fog, lack of focus and concentration. And the big one that probably precipitates all of those others is insomnia. And, with 2/3 of the American people and probably around the world now not sleeping enough. And enough doesn't mean time. It's really about depth. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Your brain functions on frequencies. So we need all these different frequencies to make it work right. It's kind of like having a band, and you need the bass, you need all the different players in there to make it sound right. And our brain works the same way.
I also find that sleep is like the number one thing people rationalize not getting enough of. I mean, they say, yeah, I hear you, but no, I'm good with 5, I'm good with 6, or I just don't have the time, or I got to stay up and I got to do this. I mean, they will fight tooth and nail for why they don't get enough sleep. And time and time again, not just in this conversation, but in a lot of the research that I do, sleep is the key of because it just determines how your body and your brain is functioning. And you can't expect optimal results. You just can't if your brain and your body do not get the rest that they need to do their thing. And yet people still rationalize not getting enough sleep.
Right. Sleep is, I tell people, it's your superpower. And if you don't have it, it's your kryptonite. So they say that if you don't get enough sleep 3 days in a row, you're walking around like you're drunk. So what we're talking about here, of course, the sleep paradox we're talking about. So we have two brains. Think about this, guys. We have a thriving brain. That's the brain where we want to improve and maximize. And we have the survivor brain. And if you're not sleeping well, we wake up with that survivor brain on overload, or we call that the fight or flight brain, if you will. So we need to turn that brain off. So a lot of people sleep inappropriately, which means they think, hey, I'm supposed to go to bed, hit the pillow, I'm in deep sleep. No, we need to unwind. In fact, I tell people that's your time to review the day, be mindful about it, use your gratitude, what's going on during the day, bless the people, whether they were good or bad to you, just clear it all out. And if you do that at night, you're going to find you're going to sleep deeper. So we're going to find out one of the things that we want you to write over there is how much sleep do you think you need? I like following Deepak Chopra, and Bob, maybe you have a way that you teach people, which would be interesting. Deepak, we learned this a long time ago in his book about quantum health. And he says, on a weekend when you know you don't have to get up by an alarm, go to bed at a normal time, wake up at a time where you need to get out of bed, do that for 3 straight days, and you'll find your timing, but get out of bed. A lot of people think, oh, they look at the clock, I got 3 more hours or 2 more hours. If you're up, get up. And it's better to do a meditation later in the day and get more done, because your morning is a very sacred time if you can start to use it. So let's talk about Ann just for a moment again. Ann knows that meditation can help calm and help her sleep, but she struggles to quiet her mind. That's probably true for most of you out there. So if you do struggle with meditation, just tell us by saying, I struggle. And meditation should be easy. I mean, I like people go, yeah, I meditate every day. I try to get in 15 minutes. For me, if it's 50 minutes, I'm going, I really want to do another hour. It's like, that's not enough for me. It shouldn't be like a job. This should be something like, this is recess. This is a time that, when you were a kid and you really wanted to do something. So if you're struggling with meditation, we want to change that. That's one of the main things. So what if I told you there's a simple but powerful technique that can balance your brain, bring you calm, help you sleep, recharge your system, and help you to learn quickly? But it's 100% passive. Your brain learns passively. When you learned your first language, you didn't sit down and learn it like they teach you in school. Your brain absorbs it in a state called theta. Basically, we were sponges, and it was more about organizing that information, but we absorbed it. We're still absorbing today. It's just the filtering system of our brain doesn't allow us to access that super brain that we all have. It works instantly. And it is like meditation, but it's people that are real strict meditators might find an issue with that. So we say it's easier than meditation because it is meditation, but it's done for you or with you, however you want to think about that. You don't have to learn how to put your tongue at the roof of your mouth or hold your mudras, your fingers, whatever you're doing. You don't have to do any breathing. Just follow along. In fact, there's a word for it. It's called let. And the word let means in no way help or hinder the process. So you just let it happen and it'll work with you, because that's the way our body is designed. We're really biofeedback mechanisms. Our body is. When we're around people we love, we resonate to that frequency. When we're around people we don't love, or we might have not as nice things to think about them, we can feel that. And that tells us, hey, we need to do something because we want to be more in that harmony state. So I'm going to show you about the fast and simple solution that we have. It's called Braintap. And this combines several different methods that restore balance to your brain and help you with optimal performance in mind and body. And I'm going to go through those a little bit with you here so you understand how it all works. But this is a picture of her using it. Of course, it has an app and it has a headset. So with this brainwave technology, and in the news now, what I like, Bob, is you're seeing brainwaves mentioned all the time now. That was never mentioned before. I mean, for years, we were thought of as just crazy people that were, what are we doing with this brain thing? They thought it was fixed, but now we know we can improve our clarity. This is the power to maintain perspective, think clearly and learn quickly. It's going to help our quality of sleep. Remember, it's not just the time sleep, but helping us to relax and fall asleep into a deep restorative sleep. There's something called level 4 sleep is what we need. That's the only sleep state that detoxes the brain. So if you're into health, deep sleep is one of the things you need to get that toxins out of your brain. And it's going to give you more energy. We live in an energy economy. I mean, if you can teach somebody how to have more energy, they're going to follow you to the ends of the earth, because there's so many drags on our energy today, people wanting time, energy, or effort from us. So this is all delivered by an app. We say press play to change. So on that app, you're going to see all the different sessions, depending upon what bundle you're talking about. Of course, we're talking about the audio book bundle today, but it also comes with the headset if you want to. That's optional. You can do it with just the sound and vibration through the app with your own earphones, or you can upgrade it and have the experience like Bob and I do with the full headset. So when we talk about super learning, I'm going to ask you to stay to the end and learn how we've combined this breakthrough technology with the wisdom of your favorite authors and thought leaders for a one-of-a-kind visualization meditation experience. With these kind of benefits, we're going to stimulate the production of natural stress and tension-relieving neurotransmitters such as endorphins. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. It helps change unwanted behaviors. This is how I started. I started a clinic. I used to have a franchise of 108 locations around the country. I sold it in 2002. And we would help people with things like weight loss, stop smoking, stress reduction, pain-free childbirth, all of those things, because I was a therapist. That's what you do then. And then it's going to help to get rid of negative mind chatter that we have, and enhance motivation and performance. There's the old story about the two dogs fighting in your head, and the Indian chief says the one that you feed is going to win. So many people are in that struggle. You just don't give energy to the negative, but it's easier said than done. It's a rehearsed process. And some people have rehearsed being negative so well that even when things are going great, they figure out a way. I love the quote by Einstein that says, never argue with a negative person because they find a problem to every solution. So we want to find that person that finds a solution to every problem. Right now we need creative people. We're in a problem-solving stage in our universe, really, in our whole existence. This is a time where the rubber meets the road, and we want to have our best selves showing up day in and day out. And I do truly believe that each one of you has a unique genius. You have something to add to the world. And, this is a time for you to step up and start showing the world who you are and getting in the right state. It's about physiologically being in the right state, mentally being prepared to deliver your best self, and then showing up at whatever you're doing as your best self. But with jet lag, we had a group of pilots with United that flew from San Francisco to Japan. They went across 7 time zones. The way the airlines work, if you're a pilot, you cannot fly for 3 days after you make that trip because your nervous system is wrecked. And we did a brain scan with them. Yeah, in fact, it was. So what we did in the study was we had every pilot. They always go back. If you've ever been on an international flight, they have a little place where the pilots go back and sleep. They take their little rest, but they really don't rest back there because you're moving. I know if you've ever slept on an airplane, you really don't get great sleep if you're just doing it yourself. But we gave them a Braintap to use. They used a Braintap on the flight. Then we again had them do it right when they landed, and then we measured their brain function. Their brain went back to the state it was before they left San Francisco in 4 hours, which meant now they didn't have to drink a lot. They didn't have to abuse their body, do drugs. They still couldn't fly because that's the rules of the airline. But instead of them being held up in their hotel room for 3 days trying to get their jet lag before they get on their plane and get jet lag again, these people can only fly 4 flights a month. That means two flights, really, there and back, because it's such harm on the body. Wow. We were showing them that you can get the body back. So think of meditation, brain tapping as a recovery tool that we need to recover our brain. We're all like Olympic athletes. We just have our own Olympic activities going on. We need a way to rebuild and recover that. So let's talk about who's reporting these benefits that I'm talking about and who's doing this kind of thing. Well, first of all, we have a lot of research partners. We put Duke here, but we have 11 different research partners, 5 in India, as well as Nimmons, which is the world's largest mental hospital in the world. They set up a 20-station brain tapping room because they see so many people a day. This is in Bangalore, India. And also Google is one of our preferred partners. They have a 140,000 different employees. So we're part of their perks program there. So companies use us, universities use us, but also we have some influencers out there. Some of you might have seen American Pie with Shannon Elizabeth. She was somebody that a doctor of ours in New York City gave her a headset. And then just out of the blue, she decided to do a 3-minute, really, infomercial for Braintap, telling all of her followers, which she has, a few 100,000 followers, just how this Braintap has helped her with jet lag and travel. And she does a lot of work in Africa. That's one of her nonprofits. So she's flying around all the time. So she's telling her people about that. You can look that up online. Corey, if you're in UFC, you'll see that we have about 12 UFC fighters, and most of them are in the top 10. And Corey, this is him right before his fight, where he told when he was being interviewed after the fight, he said, I saw it in my mind. He says, and in about 1:15 into the fight, he knocked the guy out. So we don't really have a session that does that, but he was listening to the Sports Zone series and he visualized that for himself because he's a fighter. That's what he does. So we also have these guys, which you might know.
Hi, I'm Kathy Smith. Let me tell you about Braintap. This amazing device lets you reach deeper meditative states, leading to more mental clarity, more focus, and more motivation in all aspects of your life. Plus, it helps you eliminate negative self-talk and self-doubt, so you can reach your goals, whether it's to trim down, quit smoking, or run a triathlon. On top of that, It helps you get a great night's sleep. Now, does this all sound too good to be true? Believe me, it works. So
How do we change our consciousness? We now know that there are techniques, some of which you're very familiar with because you've created them, Patrick, that allows people to have their consciousness and their vibrations change to a certain frequency that allows all the stuff I'm talking about to happen in a much easier, quicker, and less resistant way.
Happy to share some of my routines that I do every morning to jumpstart my brain. Small, simple steps. 10 minutes of clarity, or writing and journaling, 10 minutes of self-care, of going for a brisk walk and doing some breathing exercise, using your Braintap, right? Doing something that's for yourself, that's care.
What if for the 15 minutes a day you were going to do your meditation at home, you could use technology like Braintap, right? That lets you get more in less time. So you walk out of it saying, I got a lot more benefits. Same time, same energy. I felt better. I got more progress.
Kathy Smith is a good friend of mine. She started using it. She's really into physical fitness, but right there, that picture of her, she's 65 years old. She takes really good care of herself and she's in really good shape. And without us knowing it, she went online with her followers as well. And she produced a 10-minute video explaining the benefits of Braintap. You can just look her up, Kathy Smith, and you'll see it. There we go. So what's the science behind Braintap? I'm going to go into light, sound, vibration, music, and imagery now, so you know. So this isn't something we just thought of yesterday. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that are just getting into it, but we founded this space. So when you're talking with us, I'm not the only person. There were 6 of us on the team that invented it. And we hired a lot of outside people, really smart people like Ann Wise, who wrote the book. She wrote the book, The Master Brainwave. So most of our training is about training your brain. There are a lot of smart people out there. And we hired all that we could when we were starting at Light Sound Research. We were very fortunate to bring them together because there was no technology like this until we created the very first one. And then we took a clinical model, which used to be $10,000, Bob, which I couldn't even afford myself. Luckily, I was with the company, so I got to use it. And we created this smaller version that's really, really there. So let's talk a little bit about what's the science behind all of this, because you might be wondering how we know this. So binaural beats, we talked about the Monroe Institute and other people. Binaural beats have been around since the 1800s. They figured out how to do that. So if you're not familiar with binaural beats, I'll just give you a little class right now. Basically, if I wanted to get you to 10 hertz frequency, which would be alpha, which is a really good state to meditate to, I would put a 300 hertz frequency in one ear and a 310 in the other. Your brain would actually hear a phantom sound of 10 hertz. It wouldn't hear the 300 or the 310. It would hear 10 hertz. Now, the key to that is that the brain, if it's novel, for neuroplasticity, it has to be unique, novel, and enjoyable. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix that up. We call it an algorithm. So it's not just a binaural beat. You can get binaural beats all day long on YouTube, but they've not been proven. They might work for a little bit, but you need novelty and you need flexibility and also change. So what we've done is we integrated in isochronic tones. What an isochronic tone is, binaural beats are stereo, so you have to wear the earphones to get that experience. But isochronic tones you can put in the room. They actually sell these for spas now. You can get what they call a Schumann generator. A Schumann generator means that it's going to generate a frequency like a mountain, 7.8 hertz frequency. People go in there and they just start feeling good. They don't know why. And there's a lot of different frequencies and tones that do that. But your body hears this. We could put a sound in the room and you wouldn't hear it consciously, but we could hook you up to a brain entrainment device or a device that we could measure cortical responses, and your brain would be responding to it. So your environment plays a big role. That's why, when you're studying and things like that, there's certain things you can do to get your brain into a better state, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Guided visualization is important because we now know that you can change up to 2,300 gene expressions just by the pictures you hold in your mind. So if you're visualizing the right things, you're turning on those correct gene expressions. If you're visualizing inappropriate things, you're going to turn off the gene that you need and turn on the one that would be more for addiction and things of that nature. So your body's very intelligent. And as we talk about it, it's changing every 40 seconds or faster. Some people would say faster, but every 40 seconds, you're emitting light throughout the body, through the fascia, through photobiomodulation of our own self. Your cells are actually communicating with each other through light. And when you think different thoughts through guided imagery, they know you change those. In fact, there's been so much research done on that. Deepak Chopra actually wrote it into one of his books that showed that they actually reversed aging or slowed it down when they took people and had them in an environment like 30 years ago. Your body actually would respond to that. Now, when we talk about 10-cycle holographic music, there's a lot of out there about music, and music is very powerful for the brain. But what they found was there's music they call Mozart. They call it the Mozart effect. And what they did was that when you play this music while somebody's learning, your brain is smarter because your brain actually synchronizes. If you've been fortunate to be at like a symphony, like my wife used to work at the symphony, so we got to go all the time. And I'm looking around at everybody and half the audience is sleeping. And they're sleeping because they're not used to being in alpha. The music is creating a balanced brain state, but they'll gladly pay that $100 or $200 next month so they can get that powerful nap because they're not getting it at home. So music is very powerful. If you have the right music, it can really affect what's going on. And then we're going to talk about light frequencies. We use 2 light frequencies, 470 nanometer light, and we use 630 nanometer light, basically because that's 2 frequencies of light. There's millions of frequencies, so I'm in no way saying these are the only ones, but these are the 2 frequencies that are most necessary to wake the brain up. So in the morning, we love sunrises and sunsets because it activates different neurological functions. In fact, there's been research that shows if you can watch a sunrise and sunset every day for 30 days, you can reset your gut biome. And we now know the gut and brain have a real connection. There's a connection there that we have a thinking gut. In other words, it's not just to digest food. You have more neuron connections there than in your brain. When we think about the brainwave solution, where you're at right now, and I'm not saying everybody out there, but most people out there that we see in the world are operating in a state called beta. This is the current state. It's a stressful state. We call it the reactionary mind. So when you're in that state, when you might not be totally relaxed, but you're a little on edge and you're just reacting to situations. That's not as joyful as if you can get into this alpha state. They actually say that Einstein operated more in the alpha state than in the beta state, which would be maybe that's why he was so creative, because most people who are intellectuals hang out in beta more than they hang out in alpha. But this is the relaxed, dreamy, drowsy, creative state. We've all been there. If you're around friends and you go, wow, you look at the clock and you go, son, seems like we just started here. How did 2 hours go by or something like that? That's because there's no time in this state, and there's no time in theta either. Theta is a healing state, a super learning state. These 2 states occupy what we call the thriving brain. Now, they're active even when you're awake. So it depends on the percentage of these different brain waves. But unfortunately, most people that we scan, Bob, they're in high beta and high delta, which I don't even show here. If you're in high delta when you're awake, which you've probably heard the expression, the masses are asleep. And we found that to be true. Over 90% of the people we've scanned over the years, they have 60% or more of their brain in delta while they're awake. That means they either have a lot of inflammation in their body, which could be true now that we know that's a truth, but it could also be they had traumatic brain injury, or they just didn't get the right sleep they needed. So their brain's going, hey, I need to go back to sleep. I need to get what I need. So we now know that proper training, brainwave training, we can alter this behavior. Now, none of these brainwaves are more important than the other. It's like you've got to be in them for different purposes. So it's not like beta is a bad villain. You need beta if you're going to do exercise, drive your car, do your taxes, all those kind of things. Ugh. You would want to do your taxes in alpha. There's also a brainwave state that's called gamma, which is really powerful, which is above this, which they now have linked to overcoming amyloid plaque and dementia. And we show a 23% improvement of gamma brainwave activity with every Braintap session. Wow. So when we showed that to MIT, they got blown away because they built a $10 million room to do that, and they only got 6% gamma improvement. So Lou Tai, who's the researcher there, got a little, she now owns a Braintap, by the way. But when we went there and showed her, because they were touting the 6% change, luckily I got to have a meeting with her because our CEO is friends with the guy who runs the brain lab there. And you go, how can this little device do it? And I said, because the brain is connected, or your eyes are your brain. So you have direct access to brain activity, and your ears have meridians. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why we have lights in the ears as well. So let's talk about routines, because there's 3 times that we find are best for people to use it. And when I talked about that routine with the women 55, 65 earlier that overcame the dementia, even though their doctors couldn't change their diagnosis, but they no longer scored on the dementia scale, they would do a morning session. We call this digital coffee. So what happens is we're going to increase the brainwave activity. We're going to get more beta alpha activity, and that's going to wake your brain up, and it's going to be good for cognitive thinking. Usually these sessions are only around 10 minutes because hopefully you got a good night's sleep. You don't have to relax as much. But in the middle of the day, we call this a reset session. It's to rejuvenate your body. Our research shows if you do a 20-minute session in the middle of the day, that you can reclaim up to 80% of the energy you had when you woke up. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. So, everybody knows the power of a good nap, but they don't want to spend 4 hours taking that good nap.
Yes, we do. We just can't.
Yeah. You don't have the time. It would be great to have the 4 hours to be able to do it.
Right.
And then 90% of brain tappers do it at night because that's the only time they have. But you can do it right at night, right before you go to bed. A small percentage of people will just want to do this with their earbuds. It just depends on your nervous system, because we're gonna give you energy. Light, photon, we are photaic in nature. While we're sitting here talking right now, we're actually throwing off photons all the time, not just biophotons at the cellular level, but our mitochondrias projecting photons. Some people call it the aura, things like that. But science is now, they know that our body is communicating not only through the nervous system, but we're communicating with light through our body system. So when we bring light into the body, our bodies are designed to be outside for 12 to 14 hours a day, but that's not what we're getting anymore. We're inside. So we need the right light. And we can do that by dosing with light like we have with Braintap. There's other sources too, but we use red light a lot here at the clinic. So let's talk about the numbers for a moment. Since we put out the new brain tapping app, we've had 3,200,000 sessions played on the new app, and it's growing. We have our average user listens 28 times a month, and only 1% of our users ever drop from month to month. So if you're wondering, gosh, do people use this? Do they like it? They like it, they keep using it, and they get their family to use it. We have over 2,210 healthcare practitioners using it. So that number above doesn't count those being used at clinics. So with that, we figure we touch about 4 million people every week in the clinics. So they're doing their thing, but they're doing it on a clinical level. The doctors are prescribing what sessions they might need to listen to. 81% of our Braintap users tell us that it enhances their clarity of thought. And, stress builds up all day long, and everybody knows the benefit of a good night's sleep, or at least you should after this talk. We talked enough about it, but we need to also reboot during the day. I mean, even the professional teams that we work with, and almost every professional team you could mention has a Braintap. So what they do is we have one picture of a group in Kansas City, the Kansas City Sports. They're a professional soccer team. They put in a 20-station brain tapping room where they do the pants that you wear that squeeze the bad blood out of your legs because they're running around, soccer players, so while they're doing that 20-minute session, they used to just be on their phone, stressed out, but now they do brain tap at the same time. So you can do this with other therapies, and especially for recovery.
Yeah.
Now, how can you experience brain tap for yourself? We're going to talk a little bit, Bob, about our best offers, the bundles, and what's going on in just a moment. But you can do it. It used to be, just for those people wondering, why haven't you heard about this before? Well, it was that the only way you would find out about this before was if you were going to one of our clinics. It wasn't available in other places. So for the last 3 years, it's been available everywhere. So we've opened it up so that anybody can buy it. So it's going to include the Braintap headset, unique frequencies of pulsating light, sound, and entrainment in synchronizing the brain waves. What's going to be included in your membership bundles? First of all, you're going to get jump starting your morning, deep sleep, stress less, find clarity, live a healthy life, get motivated. There's 179 different sessions, and they all come on your phone. So you can use them wherever you want, as long as you don't have to be awake. You don't want to use them when you're driving down the road. So we want to talk a little bit today, a little bit more on why Bob's involved, is we want to take his technology, his learning, and modify it, make it, improve it in a way, or give it a different spin, if you will. I don't think you can improve it. It is what it is. I mean, it's great.
I know what you meant. No worries.
So we want to we want to mainline it into the subconscious. I love when somebody said that about our technology one time on TV. So when we talk about that, we're going to talk about, so we also have included in our books, Think and Grow Rich, which most have done, the 4 commitments, the principles of real magic, the trick of making money is having some. There's 64 different books that we've done so far. We keep adding new books into the library as we work with the authors and work to get that done. So Bob, tell us a little bit about what they're going to learn in this book summary and how it activates their subconscious.
Well, this book was written because of, I guess I had been teaching law of attraction for a while now, and kept coming back around to, why are we even alive? What's the point? And, what makes us feel the best? And there's so many people chasing stuff and money and all of those things. But, my contention has always been that what we're really, really craving in our lives is for our ability to express ourselves creatively. And creatively can be, through the arts, but in anything we do, through parenting or business or whatever. But it's about this feeling of passion about what we're doing. And I find so many people just spending years and years and years just trying to figure out their passion, which is it's really right in front of you. It's just again, the wiring and just the signals we've gotten, various messages like that's for somebody else. You need to relegate your passion to a hobby and get this responsible job. So this book was really all about the power of just allowing yourself to reconnect with your passion that's probably there, different ways to discover it. And then in terms of the law of attraction, how once you do that and once you're living in alignment with that, the law of attraction, all of that stuff just kind of works by itself without having to worry about all these techniques and different things like that. So these are the principles that this book is about. It's really about there's so much noise keeping us from that sense of passion, and this book is trying to bridge the gap. And obviously, that's what we're doing here with the program.
Right. So part of it is we've condensed down the absolute nuggets into an 18-minute session that you can listen to and activate it, because it's one thing to have knowledge, and I think you even say this in the book. Knowledge alone isn't but knowledge applied is power. So we need to apply that knowledge and put forth that effort. So we're touching on the key points, and if you read the book, it's going to be awesome, because now that memory is going to be there, and you're going to have access to those creative capacities of our consciousness, and you can get it working through you. I always say you get what happens through you, not always to you. So this is one of the ways to embody that part. So thank you, Bob, and I know that we'll get more of your books eventually as well. So you've got a couple more that are very on the radar for what we need.
Great.
So let's talk about this. What is this special? What are we talking about here? Let's talk a little bit about what the cost of brain health is and what it's costing you to be out of balance. First of all, what's the cost on focus and productivity? What's the cost on happiness and peace, peace of mind? What's the cost on physical and emotional health? Are your relationships out of sync? All of these things happen when you're in a better state of mind. Everything's going to improve, from your relationship with yourself to your relationship to everyone else. So all of this plays a role. So if we can bring the stress level down in your brain, it's going to bring the stress level down in your life.
I also want to jump in and say, one of the things about that is the frustration that mounts with people, particularly in the personal development. They get into personal development. Let's say they see The Secret. And then they want to learn all about the law of attraction. And then they try all these different things, and they just become self-improvement junkies or whatever. They try freaking everything. Maybe they probably don't see it through, but they try all this stuff, and they just get frustrated because they're not seeing the results that they want. And they're not even thinking about, well, maybe there's just maybe my brain's out of balance. They don't know what they don't know. So that what's just another thing on that list is what happens is the cost of having this brain out of balance, you extrapolate it through various quote unquote failures, and then people just absolutely give up on themselves. They give up on their dreams. They figure it's not meant for them. They've tried everything. It's just not for me. It works for other people, but not them. And that to me is really the most devastating thing, when a person absolutely loses hope for improvement, when their brain is right there ready to change with just a few little tweaks, which this provides.
Yes. Yeah. You want the constant, steady improvement, and then it's going to last. That's the key things. Everybody wants that, what I call cosmic quick consciousness, like the old chocolate milk. They want to put it in the milk, drink it in the morning, be instant Buddha. But
Yeah.
The reality is that it's going to take some time. And with Braintap, you have a chance here, because with the special that Bob's arranged, is you're going to get $100 off the price of the headset. And if you combine it with a year, really for $100 over the cost of the headset alone, you're going to get a year's access with all of our bundles. So there's some pretty big savings there that you can go over there and get. So we're going to be available, of course, to help you make that decision. And while you're doing that, we're going to be here to answer any questions you might have in the chat box. But I want you to hear a little bit while you're thinking about those, just to hear a little bit about how we changed Bob's book, Follow Your Passion, Find Your Power, into a brain tapping session.
So thank you, Patrick, for this, because this is fascinating. I learned stuff even more today than, when I was watching it before. I love having the conversation. And for those people who are still watching this and listening, who have the questions, please absolutely ask them. That is why we're here, to continue to answer these questions for you. If you think perhaps, well, maybe I'm slowed down because of this, is brain balance a part of this? Don't be shy about asking the questions. Take advantage of this opportunity and think really about what he said there. What is it costing you? Because this is after 20 plus years of coaching people, it's like people get in their heads about investing in a new thing or whatever because they've tried so many things. But what we're doing here is explaining why there's a very good chance some of those things that you invested in didn't work. Where the mechanism that's going to determine whether or not it works or not, your brain, is most likely out of balance, because we do live in a world with all of those things that distract us, that we're just fragmented. I mean, we're just so fragmented now more than ever because of the wide variety of information we have, the differing opinions, and this guy seems right, this guy seems right. What do we do here? And I can see why, and I just see it in my own life, and certainly with clients, how fragmented they are and how out of balance they are. I think when you asked the question at the beginning, do you think your brain is out of balance? I mean, that may have been the first time anyone ever considered that as even a possibility. Well, what does that even mean? But I think intuitively they can probably tap in and go, yeah, I do feel out of balance. Like things are just like I can't hold a thought for a long time, or any of those things. So if any of this has called to you, sparked something in you, and you have a question, does this relate to you? Absolutely ask the question. And I have so enjoyed getting back into this now with the new app and the new programs, and not even just mine, but some of the other things out there, just putting this on again after a few years, and just how quickly you feel the impact of it. It really is extraordinary. So as they play excerpts from the program that they did for me, just ask the questions, and we so appreciate your time and attention during this. And again, Dr. Patrick Porter, thank you for your time as well. And I hope everybody enjoys what they listen to here now.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for being available as well. So
my pleasure.
Hello, this is Dr. Patrick Porter, and welcome to Follow Your Passion, Find Your Power, a WAKEUP Audiobook Series based on the book by Bob Doyle of the same title. We are born with the ability to create our lives by design. Each of us has a unique passion, interest, and motivation. Today's session is going to help you to mobilize those inner resources and allow you to use a natural law, the law of attraction, which plays a major role in how circumstances of our reality are shaped and focused in our minds, body, and through our everyday experiences. Your eyes should already be comfortably closed. Your breathing deep, rhythmic, and relaxed. If you should lose track of my voice during the playing of this recording, I want you to shift your attention back to your breathing and breathe in as deeply as possible, and then breathe out as completely as possible. Your breath will guide you back to a relaxing state where your body and mind will synchronize. Your thoughts will organize around the thoughts, ideas, and concepts found in Bob's book. Shift your awareness deep inside and begin to think about your dreams. Imagine those things as they come to pass as reality will bring you greater joy, greater acceptance, and most importantly, help you to find your power. With this breathing technique guiding you further and deeper inside, shift your attention now to your heart. At the core of every heart beats success. From deep inside, your heart beats rhythmically, naturally, and automatically. Over 86,000 times a day, this happens with and without your awareness. Now, I mention your heart because it is controlled by your other than conscious mind. That's the part of your mind that's listening, absorbing, and will begin to use the law of attraction in ways that you never dreamed possible, allowing you to achieve things that you've always wished, want, and desired for yourself. You've seen it in others, you've read it in books, and you've watched it in movies. Now, you're going to deploy the power and the resources of your own consciousness. So from that inner sea of awareness, between the tick and the tock of the clock, you're going to learn to ask, and then believe, and then watch as you achieve step-by-step process in your life, from your relationships, to your business, to any personal desire you might have. This process works in the same way as gravity. It works with or without your awareness, and it's not dependent upon your belief in its working. It simply works through what you think about, you bring about each day without consciously knowing it. You attract into your experience those things which resonate with who and what you believe yourself to be. So journey deep inside to the very core of your heart and tune into your true success frequency. There is a blueprint for you and for your life. It's simply unwinding, unraveling, ridding your mind and body of all negative thoughts, all negative concepts, all negative beliefs that stand between who you are now and who you're going to be in the future. So as you journey deep inside, if a feeling that is less than passionate about your outcome should enter into your mind or body, you now know exactly what to do with that feeling. That sensation will dissipate. It will dissolve. It will melt away with a 5-step process that you've learned through this book. You will find the first step is to identify the feeling you have about the issue, whatever it is, whether it's building a positive and dynamic relationship or bringing wealth into your life as naturally as you're breathing. Whatever the outcome is you want, wherever the resistance resides, I want you to become aware of it now. Notice the sensation and feeling and let it be here now. And then simply ask yourself, would you be willing to allow yourself to welcome new feelings, new outcomes, new possibilities? And as you allow your mind to open to the infinite field of possibility, stepping out of negative thoughts, concepts, and beliefs and into the sea of consciousness where all things are possible, you begin to ask yourself, could you let go of this feeling? With infinite possibilities, what would life be like if you could release, allow, and accept who you truly are? For you're far greater than you've been led to believe, far more capable than you've yet allowed yourself to become. So from here, step 4, begin to think of the sensation, the feeling that you'd like to replace it with. What would that be like? How would you see it, hear it, feel it? How would you experience it around family members, friends, and coworkers? Begin to ask yourself when you would like to have this new experience, this new emotion, this energy that becomes motion. The energy is the information that drives the vision.